Today's Gospel is a small section from the much larger discourse of Jesus on the end of time. Let us take a look at the larger discourse to get a sense of the context. Jesus and his disciples were passing by Herod's temple in Jerusalem, which was still a building in parts, and whose splendid architecture drew the admiration of all who gazed upon it. Yet Jesus is not impressed at all. In fact, he predicts that within their own lifetime, not one stone will be left upon another, when the enemies of Jerusalem destroy the city. These alarming comments of the Master disturb the disciples and lead Jesus to talk about both the forthcoming destruction of Jerusalem and the end of the world. This is the substance of his discourse. Of course, Jesus' comments as presented by Mark may not have all taken place at one sitting, as it were. Mark has placed them here as they come from different sources. They are both repetitive and scattered. We can group his comments roughly under 5 headings. Firstly, the destruction of the temple and the signs which will lead to it. Secondly, the persecutions which will afflict the disciples. Thirdly, the false prophets and their misleading claims. Fourthly, the coming of the Son of Man. Fifthly, the sayings and parables on being prepared. It is the last 2 sections which concern us here, where Jesus speaks on the coming of the Son of Man, a mysterious figure straight out of the book of Daniel. The setting is that of the final day, a day of judgment and vindication. The imagery is that of divine power. In the clouds with a great power and glory, ways of speech which refer to the divine. Note that Jesus often referred to himself as the Son of Man in the course of his ministry, and he uses this very imagery when he is questioned about his identity at his trial before the high priest. So what is said here is that there will be a time of final reckoning wherein the Lord will appear as Savior and as Judge. The second allusion in this Gospel text is by way of simile. Learn a lesson from the fig tree. When it bursts into flower and leaf, the fig tree points to a new season. So too, the watchful disciple will sift the signs of the times to know when the end is near. Nothing is more common than complacency in society. How easily we grow correction. Yeah.
From how easily?
How easily? How easily we grow slack and careless. The discourses on the end time remind the disciples that watchfulness ought to be his characteristic, always and everywhere.